Hello everybody, today I would like to talk about realistic sparring weapons, the RSW, that we used to spar with. The reason I want to talk about this is that I made a video about the sparring between I and Ibrahim from Mijong Lohan, and people may not realize that the sparring weapon that we used were actually simulating some specific real sword. So Ibrahim, being the first time using a real sword weight and balanced sparring sword, he was doing very good already. And these are not the Bokken or the Shinai or the other padded weapons or nylon. These RSW are not like that. They are not light at all. They are actual weight and balance of the exact real sword that it is modeled after. I'm not the only person who worked on RSW. We have 3 founders, and then currently I work on the RSW along with students. So it takes a long time to make RSW, because when I get the design from an actual real sword, I will have to take a look on the total length and the blade length and the width and the shape of the sword and the weight and balance as well. And not only that, I will also pay attention to the photo. How does it supposed to distal taper along with the profile tapering? I will consider the weight distribution of the sword and the purpose of the sword, because of this purpose will affect the handling characteristic. And then when I make the RSW, I am personally responsible for tuning the handling. So I will decide how many steel components I will put into the simulator, and where the steel component should be placed in order to simulate the distal taper of the real stuff. You may never realize that the RSW was built in such manner to make it more real, make it realistic. And there often were people who wondered, hey, can your padded buffer, they call me buffer, call our stuff buffer, do the real steel bind and wind? We can, but we choose not to do it overly, because bind and wind in the German longsword is actually very dangerous activity. 9 times out of 10 times in bind and wind, even the victor will get cut or sliced a little bit. You can't emerge victorious without a scratch in bind and wind, because it's ugly business. We are close range with blades struggling against each other and grappling range. We just choose not to overly rely on bind and wind, but we do it when there is no other choice. And RSW can do bind and wind, and we did it many times before, because some of my students, despite my advice, rely a lot on bind and wind. Also, so yeah, they do it a lot, despite my dislike on the choice of tactic. Anyway, so how real are realistic sparring weapons? Let me show you some case. This is a realistic sparring weapon version of the Longship Nagamaki. I have the stuff here personally, and I will do a pattern 1 strike, pattern 2 strike, and pattern 3 strike, and then I do it with a real sword, and you can see the speed. Remember that the speed is a factor of the weight and balance and weight distribution. So if the speed is similar, it means everything is the same, or at least very close. Pattern 1 first, pattern 2, pattern 3. Now I go to use the real one. This is the Longship Nagamaki. Pattern 1. Pattern 2. This is pattern 2. Yeah, pattern 2. Pattern 3. See? And now let's take a look on the weight and balance of these simulators and the real stuff. This is the balance point of the Nagamaki, the real one. Notice the distance between the guard and the point is around here, okay? And the RSW, remember, that's real sword balanced here, right? And let's try. See how close it is, if not exactly the same, because the guard is thicker. This is how the balance is. And let's check the weight. It reads 1.7 kg. The same, 1.7 kg. So these two RSW, these two, are the ones I sparred with Ibrahim. And this one, modeled after my long ship No Remorse, the 3V version. Exactly the same handling characteristic, the same shape, same size, same weight and balance. And this one is a katana, lightweight katana, but installed with a European handguard with side range protection, which enhance a lot of its protective ability over a Zuba. And this one was used by Ibrahim. This one was used by me. They all have realistic balance and weight. Let me show you. This one has a balance here. You can see this is further away from the Nagamaki case. See? From this to this spot. And how much does it weigh? Over 1 kg. So this is a realistic weight for katana. Let me put it back. And how about my No Remorse? No Remorse is a longer sword than that katana, but it is a lot heavier. This is 2 kg. 2 kg. So it's double the weight. And how is it balanced? Just like my real sword, is from here to here. So that's the concept of RSW. The concept of RSW is that when you hold the stuff without your eyesight, you could not tell which one is the real sword, which one is the simulator. That's the original aim, the goal for our design. And I have done many tests in the past, although those are not 4K footage, but I will put it in the videos to show you that in the past we already tried to prove that the impact of an RSW is the same impact of a steel sword. That's one case.
OK，唔該。
The second case, the air resistance effect on RSW is negligible because they are realistic weights, they are not featherlight. If this is a featherlight lightweight buffer, the air resistance will play a much bigger role, much bigger effect. But this is realistic weight. The air resistance is totally not effective in slowing it down. You can also compare to the Nagamaki speed contest that I did with the real sword and the RSW. And the third thing is that the spirit of RSW is if you can fight with the RSW, you can fight with the exact real sword. And during my practice, I actually cut in the same way I spar with. That means the move, the strikes I do in the sparring can actually has real effect with sharp sword. So I'll put this footage in to illustrate the point. And that shows you, as a first timer in the RSW freestyle, full body targeting, full speed sparring, Ibrahim did pretty good already. And I usually face international class championships for myself during practice, so you can understand why that particular bout was so one-sided, it seems. And we have been working on RSW since 2004. Along almost 20 years, there were many copycats from China, from Singapore, from Taiwan, and even from among some of my ex-students in Hong Kong. So please understand why that's the reason I do not want to disclose the many details of the Supreme Cutter series is that I'm being watched by many ex-students. Yeah, most of them are ex-students actually, and they would just copy my design and results and try to make it their own. So please understand that.